Break teams haven't been doing so hot for a while now, and so someone thought, what if you could deal super break damage without breaking? And that's basically Dahlia. You see, with her skill, not only does she deal damage and provide 50% break efficiency to the team, she also allows toughness reduction taken by enemies while not broken to be converted into super break damage. It works pretty much the same as normal super break damage, except there is a 0.9 unbroken multiplier, and you need to have the corresponding weakness in order to deal super break damage when unbroken. So it's not like it allows break to brute force everything, but does make it a lot easier to deal consistent damage without having to break at all. Another important part of Dahlia's kit is her dance partner mechanic. She regenerates 35 energy at the start of the battle, but also grants the dance partner to the ally that started the battle or has the highest break effect. So your main DPS, usually Firefly, would heal Rappa, and she provides a 60% super break multiplier to only dance partners. After your dance partner attacks, Dahlia performs a follow-up attack at 200% super break, but can only be triggered once per turn, and this even regenerates a skill point every 2 follow-up attacks, making it easier to play both Heal or Firefly, who can be quite skill point negative. By the way, the Dahlia herself is a dance partner, you can see from this icon above, which is why her follow-up attack is actually 260% super break, because she also provides herself with that 60% super break multiplier. The other very important mechanic is this trace. When an ally target implants weakness, increases their speed by 30%. Furthermore, if that ally is a fire character, they will deal 20 fixed toughness damage to all enemies that were implanted with the weakness, and then regenerates 10% energy each attack until you hit 50%. This second part is covering up Firefly's weakness, where after her ultimate she can take 2 turns before she can enter her ultimate again. So by regenerating energy for her even during her ultimate, which she could not do before, Firefly only requires 1 skill before she can use her ultimate again, reducing the downtime and hence increasing her total average damage or damage per action value. The interesting thing is, this 20 fixed toughness can also be converted into super break damage, so free damage for Firefly, and the 30% speed also allows for more breakpoints, which I will get to later. The fire implanting also works for the Dahlia herself. When using her ultimate, she applies the Wilt state to all enemies, which not only reduces their defense by 18%, it also implants the weakness type of the dance partner to all enemies. So Dahlia, being a fire character, also benefits from the 20 fixed toughness and 10% energy. The final part of the kit is this trace. Dahlia increases the rest of the team's break effect by 24% of her own, plus 50% for 1 turn at the start of battle, but when she receives healing or shielding, it will last for 3 turns instead. I am not a big fan of this trace, because to consistently get this buff, which will usually be about 120% for the entire team other than Dahlia herself, you have to run a sustain. I'm sure for most players who will run a sustain anyway, they will be fine with this, but Break is actually one of the few teams that you can more comfortably run sustainers, because you can just delay the enemy's action permanently, and they don't even get a turn to attack you. So for more invested players, this will hurt her performance, and there's nothing we can really do about it. I've also taken a jab at it in the intro already, but another thing I don't like about Dahlia is that she completely kills the Break team's identity, where you need to break the enemy's weakness in order to deal damage. I said it before, Hoyo's balancing of characters recently hasn't been very good, honestly. Not only did we get HP inflation, we also got some toughness inflation in the 3.x patches. So a double whammy for break teams, because not only do they take longer to break the toughness bar to begin with, where they would deal like no damage, even after they break it, they don't deal enough damage to beat the stage as fast as the other meta teams. Which is why Dahlia allowing you to deal super break damage even without breaking, to me feels like they just kinda gave up trying to balance it. And although I do think it's a poor attempt at balancing break, it is simply and objectively strong. The 3 main break carries, Rappa, Boothill and Firefly, all of them receive a decent upgrade. Firefly benefits from everything that Dahlia has to offer. She's able to regenerate energy, consistently gets 20 extra toughness for super break, and also benefits from the 30% speed boost, pushing her from 18,000 to 58,000 DPV. This team is not going to be as strong as the full Casteris Cyrene Memo Sprite team, but strong enough to be a competitive top tier meta team. It is not shown here by the way, but because of Dahlia's distributed ultimate, her follow-up attack being a bounce and the 20 extra toughness that Firefly gets, it helps the Firefly team deal with lower target scenarios better, so like when you are cleaning up the stage and there's only 1 enemy left, making the damage from the team much more efficient, which will contribute to faster clear speeds, kind of like why NXR is really good. I actually did a few calculations with Firefly a long time ago, and I believe I had Firefly at around 27,000 DPEV or something like that. So you may be wondering why it's now 18,000. It's because during Fuchs release, it was calculated with lower toughness, and also because Firefly dealt enough damage with double break to one-shot the wave at the time. This meant that in terms of action value, not just Firefly but break teams in general like Boot Hill, were much more efficient because they used less action value to clear the stage. And now to show the difference between pre-Dahlia and post-Dahlia teams, I'm using a higher toughness assumption. For Firefly it's 100 and 120. So if you are wondering about different scenarios, because Dahlia lets us super break without breaking, the higher toughness we use as our assumption, the greater the difference will be when comparing break teams before and after Dahlia, and vice versa. So whatever I have here is not fixed, and the upgrade is very scenario or assumption dependent. Moving on, Boot Hill also gets a huge increase in damage, and the toughness assumption is 160 and 180. Finally, Rappa the smallest increase, even though she is calculated at 5 targets, while Firefly is at 3 and Boot Hill at 2. In case you didn't know, the more targets you have with an AoE unit, like maybe the Herta or Acheron, usually the greater your DPEV will be because you can hit all 5 enemies. This is why you can't really compare a 3 target to a 5 target DPS, because there's no basis of comparison. Which is why, even though Rappa's damage output is now 60k DPEV, it looks pretty impressive, right? I still think it's the smallest upgrade of the 3 break carries. I mean, when you look at the interaction, it kind of becomes obvious, right? Unlike Boot Hill and Firefly, Rappa cannot implant a weakness, so she doesn't even get the speed boost. Since she's not a fire type, she doesn't get the energy or the extra toughness damage either. Most of this increase in damage is from being able to super break before breaking. Kinda puts into perspective how strong Dahlia's mechanic is, doesn't it? In gameplay as well, break feels a million times easier to play. I could zero cycle some stages without really using my brain or even optimizing it. I just kinda brute forced it. Pretty comfortable 40k pure fiction with Firefly, 3800 in Apocalyptic Shadow, and the new anomaly stage I could clear 2 cycles with an E0S1 team. Obviously break is in the shield period, but this are still pretty good results, right? From the gameplay and the math, I do think Dahlia makes break a lot stronger, a lot more meta relevant than before, and is a great unit in general. I'm more so worried that in the 4.x patches we just get turbo power creeped again, but only Hoyo knows what will happen in the future for the direction of the game, right? With that out of the way, I'm now going to be teaching you how to build and play Dahlia properly. With relic sets, your 2-piece will usually be Kalpini Lantern, and for 4-piece sets, it's between Iron Cavalry and Eagle. So this one is a bit weird. Using my assumptions, Iron Cavalry actually deals more damage in general. However, there are times in gameplay that an Eagle build would have done better. My understanding of it is that if you require more toughness to break a second time, maybe with different boss phases or different waves, Eagle is more useful because Dahlia will get an extra turn to reduce more toughness. But if the enemies break very easily, and they're like punching bags, you don't really need more toughness reduction or whatever, then I would just go for Iron Cavalry, and I recommend that for most players actually. So I did say Dahlia usually uses Kalpini, right? The other 2-piece relic set that you could potentially use is Sprightly for similar reasons to Eagle, just to get a bunch of turns as fast as possible. But I think in 99% of cases you just run Kalpini. For relic main stats, you build her exactly like Runmei. You go HP or defense body, speed boots, HP or defense op, and break or energy regen rope. I also recommend energy regen rope for an Eagle build. This gives you a 3-turn ultimate, but if you want to use it for a full break build, that's honestly fine as well if you want to get high uptime on the ultimate. Without energy regen, Dahlia is still fairly close to a 3-turn ultimate, so with enemies hitting you and so on, it's actually quite easy to play Dahlia with a break rope, and in my testing I've done that pretty consistently. And with the trace that gives the rest of the team break effect based on Dahlia's, building more break effect has a bigger benefit with sustains. Hence why both a break and energy regen rope are completely fine in my opinion. It's just if you're running Eagle, I would recommend energy regen. As for how much speed you want to hit, that depends on your setup. For Eagle, it's 156 with Runmei, 166 without, and if you have double dance, usually Harmony MC, you only require 149 speed for 3 turns in 150 action value or 1 cycle. If you're not running Eagle or dance, it's around 182 speed, translating to roughly 10 speed per relic. It is doable, but borderline impossible, so honestly even 134 speed for 2 turns is completely fine in this case. There is some new speed tuning for Firefly and Boot Hill. For 3 Boot Hill turns in 1 cycle, 167 speed without runway, and 156 width. This is with his S1 or the S5 4-star Mosaic Cone by the way, since they both give you 12% speed, and for Firefly to get one more ultimate after it expires on the second cycle, you require 178 speed without runway and 168 width. Just so we're clear, you don't have to hit the breakpoints. It's just a little something for you to work towards. Also, quick mention, if the enemies you are facing also have fire weakness, both Boothill and Rappa can run Kalpani Lantern for the extra 6% speed and 40% break effect, so it helps you to hit the breakpoints easier. For light cones, the best in slot is her signature light cone. Never forget her flame. Like most other brick light cones, it gets free 60% break effect, but also extra skill points, and the unique part is the 32% break damage boost for the wearer and your dance partner. I think some people still don't know, but regular damage boost actually does not affect break or super break damage. It has to be specifically break damage boost or super break damage boost. The Rami's damage boost actually does nothing for break teams. Break damage boost, on the other hand, is actually very rare. Off the top of my head, I think like Firefly's ultimate has 20%, and then the new Harmony Light Cone's about 16% at S1. But before that, it's really rare, which is why for Boothill and Rappa, this will work pretty similarly to an independent multiplier, because we just didn't have this damage boost before. In other words, a huge damage boost unless you already have the new Harmony Battle Pass Light Cone. From here, Cypher S1, Fugue S1 are really close in performance, followed by Pulse S5, the Nihility Battle Pass Light Cone, followed finally by Solitary Healing and Fermata S5 as completely free-to-play options, mainly used just for the break effect. Again, to answer some questions before they are asked, this calculation is vulnerability saturated. That's why Fugue's S1 is in second place, even though it has 60% break effect. If you do not have Firefly S1, an existing Fugue X1 or Lingsha S1, Fugue's S1 for Dahlia would then be the second best light cone. Defense reduction also scales better the more you have of it, and break gets a lot of defense reduction. This is why Cypher's Light Cone and Pulse S5 performs better than usual. Special mention for tutorial by the way, doesn't give any useful stats like break effect, but it does allow her to get a 2-turn ultimate. This can potentially be very strong with Eagle because you can just spam action advance, but most likely only really useful in longer fights like Anomaly or Pure Fiction. I don't think much needs to be said for the team building section, but it's usually just your break DPS plus Fugue plus Dahlia plus a flex slot. This flex slot will be your sustain, Runmei or Harmony MC. You might have noticed I didn't include any Harmony MC calculations, and that's because there is a good chance the next MC is going to be very meta again, just like Remembrance Trailblazer, so you might not even get to use Harmony MC in most cases. For Eidolons, E1 actually performs slightly better than S1 here. This is all calculated with Firefly, who already has 20% break damage in her ultimate. Once again, if you don't have other sources of break damage, S1 will perform even better than shown here. E1 is a bit of a weird Eidolon. It gives everyone the 60% super break multiplier, while dance partners get an additional 40%. But it also allows for one attack against an enemy from the dance partner to reduce 25% maximum toughness up to 300. But this only resets after the enemy receives a killing blow. Right now, most elites are 100 to 180 toughness, which is why I use those as my assumptions, while bosses can go from 240 to 300 total. So we're not even remotely close to the 1200 maximum toughness that Dahlia's E1 can go up to, which is why it's not really good right now. It's not showing its full value, but there is potential for it to be much better later. E2 decreases the enemy's all-type rest by 20% for free, and also immediately applies wilt on enemies when they enter the field. So much higher uptime on the defense reduction and weakness implant. You don't need your ultimate just for that anymore. And since we lose the rest pen buff from Runmei if you're running a sustain team, this resistance reduction is actually really strong because it makes up for it. If you are using Runmei as your flex slot, so sustainers, or maybe if you don't have Fugue for example, the value of E2 will naturally drop since you already have some resistance reduction. E4 increases the bounce of a full-up attack by 5 to 10 and also inflicts 12% vulnerability for 2 turns. Once again, in more invested break teams, Fugue, Lingsha, Firefly S1 all provide vulnerability already, so the value of E4 is a lot lower here. Once again, same logic applies. The less vulnerability you have, the stronger it will be, and vice versa. Finally, E6 increases dance partner's break by 150%, and after using her follow-up attack, all dance partners action advance by 20%. So you can think of it as a different form of dance, And there is a good reason why this is the best 4-star icon in the game. It reflects similarly here and is the best Eidolon Dahlia has to offer. On the topic of pulling, a pulling question I've seen is, should I pull Fugue or Dahlia first? You've seen the infographic of the teams, right? With only Fugue, the break teams are really struggling, but on the other hand, Exo Toughness can be a very strong mechanic. I personally think you get Dahlia first because her mechanic solves breaks issues, and then you can get Fugue for the extra break damage. Finally, for E1 versus S1 depends on what you already have in your account, but both are great. E1 has more future potential, but S1 is still really good. Technically, S1 is cheaper as well, right? So more people might lean towards that. Again, I think both are completely fine in my opinion. I guess if you really want some like future proofing, you're scared of power creep, I would grab Dahlia E1 instead. If you want to see my Dahlia showcases, I will be uploading them in a day or two, so final call for any teams or game modes you want to see before I upload the video. But if you're stuck around to the end of the video, if you would like more informative guides, you can help the channel out by subscribing and liking the video. But of course, thanks for watching and see you next time.